This story is about the death of 18-year-old Tiffany Valiante in July 2015. She lived in Mays Landing, New Jersey, a quiet area about half an hour from Atlantic City. Tiffany lived with her parents, Diane and Stephen. Her mother worked at a school, and her father worked for the state. Tiffany had just finished high school and planned to start college in New York on a volleyball scholarship. Tiffany had recently broken up with her girlfriend but had started talking to someone new. Nothing suggested she was in danger, but she did have some stress in her life. On July 12, 2015, Tiffany and her parents went to a graduation party for her cousin. The party was held at her uncle's house, which was right across the street from their home. At about 9:15 p.m., Tiffany walked home from the party by herself. At the same time, her parents got a call from one of Tiffany's close friends. The friend said she needed to speak with them in person, so Tiffany's parents left the party and went home. When the friend and her mother arrived, they said Tiffany had used the friend's debit card without permission to buy food and clothes. They believed about $300 was spent, but later it turned out to be only $86. Tiffany's parents called her, and within a minute she came to join the conversation. She said she did not use the card. The friend left at 9:24 p.m. Tiffany's mother then checked Tiffany's car and saw Tiffany quietly slip the debit card into her back pocket. At that moment, her mother realized Tiffany really had taken it. She went into the house to get Tiffany's father so they could talk to her. But at 9:29 p.m., when they came back outside, Tiffany was gone. A deer camera at the end of their driveway later showed Tiffany walking away at 9:28 p.m. Her family started looking for her right away. Around 11 p.m., her father found Tiffany's cell phone on the ground near the driveway. At the same time, 2 New Jersey Transit trains were on the tracks. One train had broken down, and another train, number 4693, was sent to pick up the passengers. Train 4693 was moving at about 80 miles per hour when the apprentice engineer saw Tiffany on the tracks. He blew the horn and used the emergency brakes, but at 11:07 p.m., the train hit and killed her. Her body was found about 4 miles from her home. The blue shorts she was wearing that night were missing. The next day, New Jersey Transit Police said Tiffany stepped in front of the train on purpose. But there were many things about the case that did not seem to fit. This made her parents think she may have been murdered. Some things were strange. The 2 train workers changed their stories several times. Tiffany had no drugs or alcohol in her system. She was afraid of the dark, making it hard to believe she walked miles alone at night. An axe with red marks was found nearby, but then lost by police. 3 weeks later, Tiffany's mother found Tiffany's shoes and headband far from the train tracks. Yet the bottoms of Tiffany's feet did not look like she had walked barefoot that far. But there were also reasons to think this was not murder. Tiffany had some problems at home in the past, including fights with her mother. She had struggled with school, relationships, and sadness. Friends said she had acted different in the months before her death. She may have been overwhelmed that night after being caught using the debit card. A bloodhound later tracked Tiffany's path from her house all the way to the spot where she died, suggesting she walked there herself. In the end, after looking at all the details, it seems more likely that Tiffany was upset, walked away suddenly, and made an impulsive choice when the train came. Terrence Woods, 2018. Terrence Shemmel Woods was born on October 24, 1991, and grew up in Capitol Heights, Maryland. He had 3 brothers and sisters. He went to the University of Maryland, where he studied TV and film. He finished school in 2013. After college, he moved to London and worked on a few TV shows for the BBC and ITV. In 2018, he moved back home to Maryland. Terrence was offered a freelance job as a production assistant for a London company called Raw TV. They worked on a Discovery Channel show called Gold Rush, Dave Turin's Lost Mine. His job was supposed to start on October 1st, 2018, and last until the second week of November. The filming location was an old gold mine called Penman Mine in Idaho. The area was deep in a large forest in a rough and wild part of the state. The crew of 12 people, including Terrence, stayed in a small town called Elk City, which was about 50 minutes away. On September 30th, 2018, Terrence's father drove him to the airport in Virginia. Terrence first traveled to Montana. He sent photos to his father and said everything was fine. Late on October 4th, he sent a text saying he had reached his hotel in Idaho. Early the next morning, he sent a video of a river and canyon with the caption Idaho. At 3 a.m., he called his father to say he had made it to Elk City. A little later that morning, he texted that he wanted to come home on October 10th, which was very early because he was supposed to stay until mid-November. On October 5th, the crew filmed at Penman Mine. 2 local women also helped by driving people around. At around 5:30 p.m., the crew was getting ready to leave. Terrence told one of the women he needed to use the bathroom. Instead, he walked toward a cliff, dropped his radio headset on the ground, climbed down the cliff, and suddenly ran into the forest. A production manager named Simon saw this and shouted for the crew to drive to the main road, maybe to try to find Terrence. Simon and some others chased after him, but could not catch him. When they came back, their clothes were torn and had some blood on them from the rough ground. Simon later told Terrence's father that Terrence was running faster than he had ever seen. The crew found a house with a phone and called the police at 6:41 p.m. The search for Terrence began the next morning. It lasted until October 11th. No trace of him was ever found. The police believed Terrence must have made it out to a road and left the area on purpose. They said the crew did nothing wrong and that there was no sign of foul play. The case stayed open but inactive. Terrence's family had doubts about how the case was handled. They did not trust the production crew. They also wondered if race played a part, though there was no clear proof. Several strange things stood out. Terrence left behind his backpack, which had many items like pain pills, a charger, and even a small knife. His clothes and his luggage were clean and folded, and none were dirty, which seemed unusual. There is no sign he was harmed by anyone. It is possible he was overwhelmed or having mental health problems and ran into the forest without thinking. It is also possible he ran off because he was unhappy with the job. Some people believe he wanted to start a new life, but no one truly knows. In the end, Terrence's disappearance remains a mystery, and many people were blamed, even though the truth is still unknown. Carly Guse, 2018. Carly Guse was born on May 13, 2002. Her parents, Lindsay Fairley and Zachary, separated when she was 3 and later divorced. In 2009, Zachary married Melissa and they had 2 more children. After the marriage, Carly and her brother moved in with Zachary and Melissa. In August 2018, the family moved to a quiet area called White Mountain Estates, about 12 miles north of Bishop, California. The area was surrounded by desert, with mountains far in the distance. Carly went to Bishop Union High School and worked part-time at the same company where her stepmother Melissa worked. When Carly was 16, she started dating a boy named Donald. On October 12, 2018, at about 6 p.m., Carly asked Melissa if she could go to a football game, but Carly did not plan to go to the game. Instead, she wanted to go to a party with her boyfriend. Melissa believed her and said yes. At about 8 p.m., Melissa called to ask if Carly needed a ride home. Carly said her boyfriend would drive her, but while at the party, Carly suddenly became very scared and panicked. At 8:30 p.m., she called Melissa and begged to be picked up. When Melissa arrived, she saw that Carly looked terrified. Her pupils were large, she was shaking, and she seemed confused. Carly said she had lied about the game and had smoked marijuana. She was very scared and said strange things, like thinking the car might kill her. She kept changing seats while Melissa drove her home. At home, Carly kept acting in a strange way. She hid in corners, then suddenly told her parents she loved them. She was afraid of her phone and did not want anyone close to her. She said she did not know why she felt so scared. Later, she calmed down a little and went to her room. She read the Bible, colored, and painted her toenails. She was calmer but still not acting like herself. Melissa decided to record Carly with her phone so Carly could later hear how she sounded while under the influence. They talked from about 10:30 p.m. until 3 a.m., then they fell asleep. Around 5:45 a.m., Melissa woke up and saw Carly sitting and writing on a piece of paper. Melissa went back to sleep. When she woke again at 7:15 a.m., Carly was gone. Melissa searched the house and yard, then drove around looking for her. A neighbor said he had seen a teenage girl around 6:30 to 7 a.m. walking south. More witnesses said they saw a girl matching Carly's description walking toward Route 6. Police came to the home and found Carly's phone, money, and glasses inside. There was no sign she had been taken by force. They spoke with Donald and the boy who hosted the party, James. Both boys said Carly became paranoid after smoking, and this matched the video from the house where the party took place. Police tested the marijuana and found it was not mixed with any other drug. 3 witnesses saw a girl who looked like Carly walking from her neighborhood toward Route 6 between 6:30 and 7:20 a.m. Police believe Carly walked away on her own. A large search was done, but no sign of Carly was found. Years later, a tip came in saying Carly might have been picked up on Route 6 and taken to Tonopah, Nevada, but this was never proven. Police say they do not believe Melissa or Zachary were involved in Carly's disappearance. LaToya Ammons, 2011. In November 2011, LaToya Ammons, her 3 children, and her mother, Rosa Campbell, moved into a rented house on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. Soon after they arrived, they began noticing strange things. In December, large black flies started appearing on their porch, even though it was winter. LaToya and Rosa kept killing the flies, but they always came back. The family also heard footsteps coming up the basement stairs, and the basement door often creaked for no clear reason. They locked the door, but the sounds continued. One night, Rosa said she saw a dark shape moving in the living room. When she looked closer, she found wet footprints on the floor, even though nobody had walked there. On March 10, 2012, at about 2 a.m., the family and some friends were awake, grieving a recent death in the family. LaToya said she found her 12-year-old daughter unconscious and floating above her bed. The girl came back down safely, but had no memory of what happened. Their friends became frightened and refused to return to the house. LaToya and Rosa contacted several churches. One church told them the house had spirits and suggested they draw crosses on doors and windows with olive oil and clean the house with ammonia and bleach. They also spoke with people who claimed to be clairvoyants. These people told them the house had hundreds of demons. Because the family could not afford to move, they tried the advice they were given. They set up an altar in the basement, burned sage and sulfur, and wore white clothing. The house felt calm for 3 days. Then LaToya said her children began acting strangely. The children, ages 7, 9, and 12, started giving creepy smiles, speaking in deep voices, and saying things that worried the adults. The 7-year-old talked to someone no one else could see, and once seemed to be thrown out of a bathroom. The 9-year-old talked about being killed. LaToya said she herself felt weak and believed she might be possessed. On April 19, 2012, a doctor came to the house. He did not believe anything supernatural was happening. In his notes, he wrote that the family might be having hallucinations. While he was there, LaToya's 7-year-old son cursed at him and seemed to be thrown against a wall without being touched. Both boys passed out and were taken to the hospital. The 7-year-old woke up screaming and moving wildly. A neighbor contacted Child Services, saying LaToya was mentally ill and encouraging her children to act possessed. A case manager named Valerie Washington was assigned to investigate. Doctors found the children healthy, and LaToya was found to be mentally stable. However, during meetings, the children continued to act strangely. Witnesses said the 9-year-old walked backward up a wall and flipped over his grandmother. Valerie became frightened and ran out of the room. Child Services took custody of the children. A local priest, Father Michael Maginot, was asked to look into the case. He visited the house and said he saw odd things like lights flickering and wet footprints. Over several visits, he blessed the house and later performed 3 major exorcisms on LaToya. In November 2012, LaToya regained custody of her children, and the family moved to Indianapolis. They said the strange events stopped after that. The house on Carolina Street was later torn down in 2016. Many people believe the events in this case had normal explanations. Some think the family's beliefs influenced how they saw ordinary things. Others think the children might have been acting or responding to stress. There is no clear proof that anything supernatural happened in the house, but the story remains well known because of how unusual it was. Amber Tuccaro was born in Alberta, Canada, on January 3, 1990. She was a member of the Mikisew Cree First Nation. Amber had some money problems, so she often moved between her mother's home in Fort McMurray and a local women's shelter. While staying at the shelter, she met a woman named Evangeline, and the two of them decided to take a quick trip to Edmonton. Amber also brought her 14-month-old son, Jacob. They flew from Fort McMurray to Edmonton on August 17, 2010. Amber's mother did not think the trip was a good idea, but she allowed it because they said it would only be one night. On August 18th, Amber and Evangeline checked into a motel outside the city because it was cheaper. They planned to stay there for the night and go into Edmonton the next morning. But that evening, Amber suddenly changed the plan. She told Evangeline that she wanted to go into Edmonton right away. Evangeline agreed to watch Jacob, and Amber walked out to a nearby road to hitchhike. Hitchhiking was risky, but it was common where Amber lived because many people did not have cars. Amber got into a vehicle sometime around 7:30 to 8 p.m. The next day, no one had seen her, and her family became worried. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, were told she was missing, but they did not seem very concerned. On August 28th, there was an unconfirmed report that someone saw Amber. The police did not check if this sighting was real, but they removed her from the missing persons list anyway. They also failed to collect her belongings from the motel in time, and her suitcase was destroyed. The police continued to say Amber had simply run away to enjoy herself, even though she had left her baby behind. For almost 2 years, nothing new happened in the case. Then, on August 28, 2012, the police said they had a recording of a phone call Amber received on the night she disappeared. A news outlet later learned that the call came from Amber's brother, who was in jail at the time. His calls were recorded, which is why this call still existed. The recording was 17 minutes long, but the police only released a small part of it. In the audio, Amber can be heard talking to a man who was driving her. She kept asking where they were and where they were going. The man gave confusing answers and said they were taking a back road. Amber told him not to take her anywhere she did not want to go. It is clear from her voice that she was worried. Police hoped someone would recognize the man's voice. 3 people said they knew who it was. The man they named was taken into custody, but the police later said he was not a suspect. Only 4 days after the recording was released, riders on horseback found human remains in Leduc County. They were identified as Amber's. Her body was found about 17 miles from the motel. She was the 4th Indigenous woman who had gone missing while hitchhiking in that same area. All 4 were found within a few miles of each other. Many people believe the man in the recording was Amber's killer. A federal review in 2018 found that the police made many mistakes. They waited too long to interview key people, failed to collect or protect evidence, released incorrect information, and removed Amber from the missing persons list when they should not have. The review said there was no racial bias, but it showed very poor police work. Amber spent the last minutes of her life trying to help by staying on the phone. She may have known she was in danger, yet she tried to leave clues. Sadly, the police did not act on that information in time. Brandon Lawson, 2013. Brandon Mason Lawson was born in Fort Worth, Texas, on November 18, 1986. He grew up with two brothers and one sister. People who knew him said he had a happy childhood. He liked camping, fishing, and spending time outdoors. When Brandon was in his junior year of high school, he met a girl named Lessa Lofton. She was 1 year younger than him. Later, the two started dating and had 3 children together. Brandon also had another daughter from a different relationship. By 2013, Brandon and his family lived in San Angelo, Texas. This town is about 3.5 hours from Fort Worth. Brandon worked very long hours, about 60 hours a week, in an oil field. He felt a lot of stress, and he had struggled with drug use for many years. Early in 2013, he stopped using drugs and seemed to be doing better. Brandon also had some trouble with the law. He had been in jail before, and he had an active warrant in Johnson County for a drug-related charge. On August 7, 2013, Brandon was trying to find meth. It is not known if he actually got any, but many people believe he did. He did not come home that night. When he finally returned the next evening, August 8th, he and his girlfriend argued. She was upset that he had stayed away and worried that he was using drugs again. Around 11:30 p.m., Brandon called his father in Crowley, Texas, and said he was going to drive there. He left home at about 11:54 p.m. in his silver Ford F-150 truck. The drive normally takes about 3.5 hours. About 36 minutes after he left, around 12:30 a.m. on August 9th, Brandon called his brother Kyle. He said he had run out of gas on the highway between San Angelo and Bronte. Brandon also said something strange. He told Kyle that 3 guys were chasing him. He later said they were Mexican guys. Kyle asked if he was imagining things, but Brandon said he was not. Brandon and Kyle tried calling each other many times after that, but Brandon kept stopping the calls after only a few words. At 12:50 a.m., Brandon called 911. His speech was very unclear. He said he was in a field, that he had pushed some guys over, and that someone was chasing him. He asked for police. Then he stopped talking to the operator. A truck driver also called 911 a few minutes later and reported a pickup parked in a dangerous way on the road. Around 1 a.m., a sheriff's deputy arrived at the truck. Kyle arrived at almost the same time. Kyle was on the phone with Brandon, and Brandon said, "I can see you. I'm right here." But neither Kyle nor the deputy could see him. Kyle thought Brandon was just hiding because of his warrant and did not realize Brandon had called 911. After waiting a while, Kyle left an empty gas can in the truck bed so Brandon could get fuel if he returned. Kyle came back again at 5 a.m., but Brandon was still gone. Later that morning, the truck was towed, and search teams looked for Brandon but found nothing. For many years, no one knew what happened. Then, on February 4th, 2022, searchers found clothing and human remains near where the truck had been. The remains were believed to be Brandon's. People have 2 main theories. Either someone harmed Brandon, or he got lost and died on his own. The second theory is more likely. Brandon was stressed, tired, and may have been using drugs again. This could have caused confusion, fear, and panic. He may have thought people were after him even if no one was there. When his truck ran out of gas, he became scared and disoriented. He called many people but could not explain clearly where he was. In the end, Brandon probably wandered into rough land while confused and frightened. He may have gotten lost, become too tired to continue, and died from exposure to the heat or the environment. Iracema Chavez was born in 1979 in Monterrey, Mexico. She was one of 6 children. When she was in her 20s, she visited her sister Diana, who lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas. Iracema liked the area so much that she decided to move there too. At first, she lived with Diana and Diana's husband, Mohammed, while she looked for work and saved money. Her family said she was very trusting, sometimes too trusting. She also kept a part of her life private. She was a lesbian, but she was afraid her sister would not approve, so she did not tell her. She hoped that once she found her own apartment, she could live more freely without hiding things. In time, she got her own place in Arlington, Texas. The area was quiet, and she was happy to have her own space. She lived there in January 2012 when her 17-year-old niece, Yessie, came to visit. On January 18th, Yessie spent the night with her and had lunch with Irasema and Irasema's girlfriend, Julia. After lunch, Yessie went back to Diana's home. That night, on January 19th, Irasema called Diana around 9:30 p.m. She asked Diana and Yessie to come spend the night with her. Diana did not like driving at night and said no. Later, Diana called again, but Irasema did not answer. Diana assumed her sister was upset about the earlier call. The next morning, January 20th, Diana drove Yessie to Irasema's apartment so Yessie could spend the day there. When Yessie unlocked the door, she noticed it was already open. As Diana drove away, she suddenly heard screaming. She looked back and saw Yessie running toward her. Yessie said something was very wrong. Inside the apartment, there was blood everywhere. Irasema was lying face down on the floor between the kitchen and dining room. She had been stabbed more than 100 times. The wounds were so many that a detective later said it looked like she was wearing a mesh shirt. Some of the stab wounds were even done after she had already died. This showed deep anger from the killer. The apartment showed signs of a struggle. A few chairs were turned over. A neighbor below said they only heard one loud thump that night, nothing more. No one heard yelling or saw anyone come or go. One thing in the apartment was missing, Irasema's flat-screen TV, but police did not think this was a robbery. Earlier, Irasema's truck had been broken into, so she had set up 2 small security cameras, one pointed at her truck and one at her front door. She often kept the video feed showing on her TV. Police believe the killer saw the video feed on the screen, panicked, and took the TV, thinking it held the recording. But the DVR, which actually stored the footage, was still there. The camera showed a person coming to her door at 11:29 p.m. on January 19th. The person wore a hoodie and maybe a cap, and their face was hard to see. They knocked and calmly walked in when Irasema opened the door. The camera was unplugged about 10 minutes later, likely when the TV was taken. Police first thought the visitor was a man, but they later found a small drop of blood on Irasema's nightstand that did not belong to her. DNA tests showed it came from a woman. This meant the killer was female. Police looked at Julia since the couple had argued that day, but Julia's DNA did not match. So the killer is still unknown, but police believe Irasema knew her because she opened the door late at night without fear. Marshall Iwasa, 2019. Marshall Iwasa was born in Lethbridge, Alberta on January 3, 1993. Lethbridge is a city a few hours south of Calgary and not far from the Montana border. As a child, Marshall enjoyed sports. He played rugby and football, and he loved being outdoors. After high school, he became very interested in fitness and bodybuilding. Because of this, he spent time with a new group of friends, and he lived with some of them in Lethbridge. Marshall worked at a grocery store for a while and later did different kinds of manual labor. After some time, he moved to Calgary to study software development at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. He lived in a basement suite while going to school. In the summer of 2019, his family believed he would return to school in the fall, but they also noticed he did not seem very excited about going back. He said that some people in his field did fine without a degree, and that experience and connections were more important. Later, his family found out that he never returned to school at all. On Sunday, November 17, 2019, Marshall drove his 2009 GMC Sierra pickup truck from Calgary to Lethbridge to help his mother with a computer problem. He left her house at 11 p.m., telling her he needed to pick something up from a storage unit and then returned to Calgary for school the next morning. His family still believed he was attending classes. Marshall arrived at the storage unit around 11:30 p.m. The building required a code for entry, and he tried several times to get in. What he did not know was that the storage place was locked down at night, and no one could enter until 6 a.m. He waited through the night and finally got inside at 6 a.m. on November 18th. He stayed until about 8:30 a.m. After this, Marshall was never seen again. 4 days later, on November 23rd, hikers near Pemberton, British Columbia, found Marshall's burned-out truck at a remote trailhead. This location was about 14 hours away from Lethbridge and deep in the wilderness. It was not a place someone would end up by mistake. The hikers felt uneasy and left the area, then told the police. The police had trouble reaching the scene and did not arrive until 2 days later. At the site, police found many items scattered around: clothing, 3 smashed phones, old passports, and gaming systems. Some of these things belonged to Marshall and some did not. Several items that should have been there, like his backpack, wallet, laptop, and contacts, were missing. Parts of the truck, including the steering column, had been removed. There are 2 main ideas about what happened to Marshall. One is that he caused his own disappearance. The other is that someone harmed him. Marshall had been stressed and had not told his family he had dropped out of school. Police said they saw no signs of a crime and no proof another person was with him. Marshall's family, however, believed someone else was involved. They pointed out that Marshall had no reason to go to that remote place, that his truck was burned, and that some items found near the truck were not his. They also wondered how items around the truck moved between the time the hikers found it and the time police arrived. Still, there are reasons to believe Marshall was alone. He had been withdrawing from people, he avoided hard conversations, and he may not have wanted to talk about leaving school. There was no sign of a struggle, and no clear motive for anyone to hurt him. Some people think he walked into the wilderness and died of exposure. Others believe he intended to take his life. He may have been dealing with problems he never shared. On the surface, Marshall seemed to be doing fine, but inside he may have felt lost. His burned truck and scattered belongings paint a picture of deep pain, and his disappearance remains a mystery. Elizabeth Barraza's murder, 2019. Elizabeth Liz Barraza was born on June 26, 1989, in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. She had one older brother named Robert. During her life, she lived in several states, including Illinois, Missouri, Florida, and Texas. She finished high school in Texas in 2008 and later went to Sam Houston State University, where she earned a degree in psychology in 2012. In 2009, while she was still in college, Liz met a man named Sergio. They started dating, and later they got married on February 1, 2014. Liz worked as a data reporter, and Sergio worked installing floors. In 2016, they bought a home in Tomball, Texas, in a neighborhood called Princeton Place. Liz and Sergio both loved Star Wars. They were part of a group that dressed up in Star Wars costumes. They spent a lot of time making their costumes look as real as the ones in the movies. They also used their costumes to help others and visited sick children in hospitals to cheer them up. In January 2019, Liz and Sergio were planning a trip to Orlando, Florida, to celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary. They wanted to visit Disney World and Universal Studios. Their trip was set for January 27th. To earn a little extra money for souvenirs, they planned a 2-day yard sale for January 25th and 26th. Early in the morning on January 25th, a black Nissan Frontier truck was seen on security cameras in the neighborhood. Around 6:08 a.m., Liz drove to Starbucks for coffee and came back home a few minutes later. She began setting up the yard sale, and Sergio helped her for a short time before leaving for work. At 6:47 a.m., the same truck was seen again. The driver moved around the area, waiting. A few minutes after Sergio left, the truck drove toward Liz's house. At 6:52 a.m., the driver got out of the truck and walked up to Liz while the engine was still running. Liz greeted the person, and they spoke for only a few seconds. Then the person pulled out a gun and shot Liz 4 times. After she fell, the shooter walked closer and fired one last shot. Then they ran back to the truck and drove away. Neighbors heard the shots and called 911 right away. Oddly, the truck came back through the neighborhood less than 2 minutes later and even drove past Liz's house again before leaving for good. Liz was taken to the hospital but died the next day. Police looked deeply into Liz's life but found no reason anyone would want to hurt her. She was kind, helpful, and not involved in anything dangerous. Nothing was stolen, and it was clear the shooter came only for her. The killer seemed to know the perfect time to come, after Sergio left but before other people were awake. Only a few people even knew about the yard sale, which made the case even more confusing. The shooter's identity is still unknown. It is not clear if the killer was a man or a woman. Police also looked at Sergio, as husbands are often suspects in cases like this, but there was nothing to show he was involved. Their marriage seemed healthy, and he was truly heartbroken. Many people believe the killer was someone who knew Liz or had strong feelings about her, even if she did not know them well. To this day, Liz's death remains a mystery. She lived a good and careful life, and there was no clear reason for anyone to harm her. Tiffany Valiante was born on July 22, 1982, in France. She grew up in the city of Poitiers from the time she was 2 years old. As an adult, she studied art history, and she also learned Russian and Japanese. Doctors found that she had epilepsy, but after a lot of treatment, her condition improved. Because of this, she was able to live a normal and active life. Before her trip to Japan, she worked in a school in Poitiers, helping children with disabilities. In July 2018, when she was 36 years old, Tiffany decided to travel alone to Japan. She planned a 3-week trip and wrote her plans down carefully in a notebook. She arrived in Japan on July 27th, landing at Narita Airport. She spent her first night in Tokyo, and then, on July 28th, she went to the mountain city of Nikko, north of Tokyo. Nikko is known for its old temples and nature. One famous place there is the Toshogu Shrine, which has many beautiful buildings and tall cedar trees all around it. After arriving in Nikko, Tiffany checked in at the Turtle Inn. Security cameras showed her arriving at the inn between 4 and 4:30 p.m. that day. She sent photos to people she knew on WhatsApp. A typhoon was coming, so she stayed inside the hotel for the evening. On the morning of July 29th, she ate breakfast in the hotel between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. Another guest took a photo of her at 8:41 a.m. After this, things become unclear. The hotel manager said he saw her leave around 9:53 a.m. with a small shoulder bag. But her phone still sent signals from her room after that time, which made things confusing. When she did not return to the hotel that night, the staff became worried. On July 30th, at around 10:30 a.m., they entered her room and found all her things still there, including her passport. They then reported her missing. On August 1st, Tiffany's family in France was told about her disappearance. On August 6th, her sister and 2 brothers flew to Japan to help with the search. Her mother asked France's president to help as well. Many people tried to find answers, but no new information came. In September, her sister asked tourists to send any photos taken in Nikko at the time, hoping that something important might appear in the background. The family kept pushing for more help. In 2019, rescue teams searched the mountains, but they found nothing. The family said they did not believe she had an accident. They said the information from witnesses did not match, and the timeline from the hotel did not make sense. They also looked at her Google Maps records, which showed that her phone stopped working at 11:40 a.m. on July 29th. There were also reports of dangerous events in the area around the time Tiffany disappeared, including violent crimes and bodies found in forests and rivers. Some people said there was a man pretending to be a tour guide near a shrine. This man was known for making unwanted contact with women, but he had not been seen since early 2018. There were also questions about the hotel manager, since he was the last person to say he saw her, and his statements did not match. The family's private investigator also said tests showed large stains on the wall of her room, but no official results were shared. Tiffany's family believes she did not leave on her own. They continue to fight for answers today, asking Japan, France, and even the United Nations to work together on the case. Tommy Ballard, 2015. Tommy Ballard was born on January 7, 1962, in Louisville, Kentucky. He spent most of his life in Bardstown, a small town with about 13,000 people. Bardstown is famous for its bourbon and the annual Kentucky Bourbon Festival. But in recent years, the town has been affected by a series of violent, unsolved crimes. Tommy lived there with his wife, Sherry Ballard, and together they raised 3 children, Crystal, Brooke, and Casey. Family was very important to Tommy. He was a loving father and grandfather to 8 grandchildren. People described him as hardworking, generous, and loyal. Tommy's life changed forever in July 2015 when his daughter, Crystal Rogers, disappeared. She was 35 years old and a mother of 5. 2 days later, her red Chevrolet Impala was found abandoned on the Bluegrass Parkway with a flat tire. The engine was still running, and her purse and phone were inside. Crystal had been living with her boyfriend, Brooks Houck, and their 2-year-old son, along with her other children. Brooks told investigators that she was playing a game on her phone when he went to bed and was gone in the morning. He did not help with the search, and suspicion quickly fell on him. His brother, Nick Houck, who was a Bardstown police officer at the time, got involved in ways that raised questions and was eventually fired. Tommy refused to sit back. He started Team Crystal, a group of volunteers from the community working to find her. He organized searches, raised awareness, and kept pressure on the authorities. Over time, Tommy became a symbol of hope and determination in Bardstown, a town already shaken by past tragedies, including the murder of a police officer and a mother and her daughter. For 16 months, he searched tirelessly. On the morning of November 19, 2016, Tommy was preparing for a hunting trip with his 12-year-old grandson on their property near the Bluegrass Parkway. Just before 8 a.m., a single gunshot struck him in the chest, killing him instantly. His grandson called his wife, and emergency responders arrived quickly, but Tommy was dead. Investigators ruled out suicide. His own gun had not been fired, and the fatal shot came from a distance, likely from the woods near the edge of the property. The FBI later confirmed that Tommy's death was a homicide. The murder shocked the Ballard family and the entire Bardstown community. In October 2023, prosecutors revealed that a rifle believed to be the weapon used to kill Tommy could be traced to Nick. Forensic tests suggested a strong match. In 2025, Brooks Hal and 2 others were convicted in connection to Crystal's murder, but Tommy's killer has never been caught. The Ballard family continues to seek justice. They raised the reward for information on Tommy's murder from $20,000 to $50,000, and the FBI offers a separate $10,000 reward. The community has supported them through rallies, searches, and awareness campaigns. Sherry Ballard has said the family will not have peace until Crystal is found and Tommy's killer is brought to justice. Ryan Shtuka, 2018. Ryan Shtuka was 18 when he finished high school in Alberta, Canada. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do with his life. Instead of going straight to college, he took a year off to work for his father. After 8 months, he realized that job wasn't for him. He then tried college and work for a year, but again, it didn't feel right. Ryan wanted an adventure. In December 2017, he moved with his best friend to Sun Peaks, British Columbia. They got jobs at the Sun Peaks ski resort and were enjoying life. Sun Peaks is a small town with about 600 people living there, but there are many homes for visitors who come during ski season. On the night of Friday, February 16, 2018, Ryan finished work and went with a few friends to a small silent disco at a local bar. Later, they went to a house party on Burfield Drive. The party had many people coming and going, around 30 to 50 over the night, but by the time Ryan decided to leave, only 9 people remained. Burfield Drive was a regular neighborhood and only a short 5 to 10 minute walk from Ryan's apartment. Around 1 to 2 a.m., Ryan and his friends decided to leave. One roommate went home first without any problem. 2 other roommates left together, thinking Ryan was following, but Ryan never came out with them. Maybe he stopped to put on shoes, talk to someone, or use the bathroom. His friends didn't notice until halfway home that he wasn't with them. They were adults and assumed he could take care of himself, so they went home. The next morning, Ryan still hadn't returned. His friends thought he might have stayed at the party overnight. Ryan never showed up for work that day, and his phone and social media were silent. Around 7:30 p.m., he was reported missing. Ryan's mother, Heather, received a text from his roommate. At first, she didn't think much of it, but then she realized something was very wrong. The message said Ryan didn't come home and didn't show up for work, and his parents filed a missing person report. Ryan was described as 6 feet tall, weighing 180 pounds. He was last seen wearing a burgundy hat, blue jacket, dark jeans, and a gray and white shirt. Despite many searches with police, dogs, drones, thermal cameras, and volunteers, no trace of Ryan was ever found. His parents stayed in Sun Peaks for 5 months to help search, checking garages, abandoned buildings, and trails, but nothing turned up. Even after the snow melted and over 40 volunteers joined the search, Ryan was still missing. There are many theories about what happened to Ryan. Some think he accidentally took the wrong path while walking home and got lost in the snow. Others wonder if drugs played a role, though nothing confirmed this. A hit and run is also possible because similar accidents had happened in the area before. Some believe he may have wanted to start a new life, but he didn't take any of his belongings, money, or phone, which makes this unlikely. Another theory is that he could still be alive and being held somewhere against his will. No matter what happened, Ryan's case remains unsolved. His parents, friends, and the community continue to hope that someone knows something that could bring him home. Skelton Brothers, 2010. John Skelton and Tanya Zuvers got married in 2002 and lived in Morenci, Michigan. They had 3 sons together, Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner. John worked as a truck driver who often traveled long distances, while Tanya stayed home to take care of the children. Tanya had a criminal record from 1998 when she was convicted of misconduct involving a 14-year-old neighbor. This was considered a misdemeanor. In 2009, John lost his truck driving job after being convicted of driving under the influence. After losing his job, he began drinking more and spending more time at home. On September 13, 2010, Tanya filed for divorce. On the same day, John took Andrew and Alexander out of school and left for Jacksonville, Florida, where his parents lived. Later, after police involvement, John returned the boys to Tanya. She was granted full custody, but still allowed John to have visitation rights. John asked Tanya if he could have the boys over Thanksgiving, and she agreed. The boys were dropped off at John's house on November 24, 2010. At that time, Andrew was 9, Alexander was 7, and Tanner was 5. The plan was for John to return the boys to Tanya on Friday at 3 p.m. However, when Tanya called on Friday to bring the boys back early, John told her they were in Jackson, Michigan, and he was unsure when they would return. He then said the boys were with a friend named Joanne Taylor, and he did not know when they would be back. John also told Tanya he had tried to hang himself and was in the hospital because of a leg injury. Concerned, Tanya called the police. Their investigation revealed that John had no real contact with anyone named Joanne Taylor. They could not find anyone by that name, and it appeared she did not exist. When police entered John's house, they found it in terrible condition, with broken dishes and overturned furniture. John's phone records showed that on November 26 at 4:29 a.m., his phone left his house and traveled about 30 minutes to Holiday City, Ohio, a rural area he was familiar with. The phone seemed to turn off at 5:02 a.m., and was back in Morenci, Michigan by 6:46 a.m. John claimed the phone had traveled without him, but this story was unbelievable. John was arrested and charged with multiple counts of kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment. On December 16th, he admitted that Joanne Taylor did not exist. He then claimed his sons were in the custody of a secret group called the United Foster Outreach and Underground Sanctuaries and were living on an Amish farm in Ohio. John said he did this to protect his children from Tanya, accusing her of mistreating them. Tanya denied this, saying she had done nothing wrong. On July 28, 2011, John pled no contest and was convicted of 3 counts of unlawful imprisonment. Other charges were dropped. In September, he was sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison. He was denied parole in 2020 and did not attend his next hearing. In prison, he changed his story again, claiming that a member of the secret group visited his house to protect the boys, but he never actually gave them away. The boys have never been found, and the police now treat the case as a homicide investigation. John was never charged with murder, but many people believe he killed his sons. His house showed signs of a struggle, and he was under many stressors like losing his job, alcohol use, and divorce. There is no physical evidence like blood or bodies, so technically, the boys could still be alive. The state got him on the other charges, giving him a long prison sentence while waiting to see if the boys were ever found. This case shows how family breakdowns can push someone to extreme actions. Losing a spouse and children can destroy a person's sense of purpose, and in desperate situations, some may plan actions that hurt everyone involved. Michelle Parker, 2011. Michelle Parker's story is a shocking and tragic one that started on the TV show The People's Court. This show shows real-life cases for the public to watch. Some cases are silly, others unfair, but Michelle's case stood out. It was about a $5,000 engagement ring she lost after throwing it at her ex-fiancé, Dale Smith, during an argument. The episode also highlighted the abuse she suffered in her relationship. The episode was filmed months before it aired on November 17, 2011. On the day it aired, Michelle disappeared. Even though she lost the case and had to pay Dale $2,500, she still benefited financially because the show covered her court costs. Her sister said Michelle was a hardworking mom, balancing 2 jobs, school, and caring for her 3 children. Michelle worked nights as a bartender at Jesse Black's Saloon and the Barn, and she also ran a small business called Glow Mobile Airbrush Tanning, which was doing well. Meanwhile, she was fighting for custody of her twins with Dale Smith. Dale Smith had a violent past. Michelle had filed a restraining order and domestic violence injunction against him, claiming he had yelled at her in front of their children when the twins were just 15 months old. Smith had been court-martialed in the Marines, was guilty of drug and domestic battery charges, and had other legal issues. He had been married twice before. One marriage ended in divorce, and the other ended when his wife died from a brain injury after overdosing while he was in jail. During their relationship, Michelle suffered physically from Smith's violence, often in front of the children. After the twins turned 1, she moved in with her mother for safety. At one point, Smith broke her car window and threatened her while holding her 15-month-old daughter. Michelle had even watched The People's Court with friends before, laughing at some of the show's ridiculous cases. But now she found herself on the same spot. On November 17, 2011, Michelle dropped the twins off at their father's home and was last seen on surveillance at 3:20 p.m. 10 minutes later, her oldest son returned home to an empty house. Her brother texted her at 4:26 p.m., and he received a single-word reply, Waterford. Her family says this was very unlike her, as she usually wrote long, loving messages. By 7:30 p.m., she missed her shift at work, which alarmed friends and family. The next day, her Hummer was found abandoned near the mall at Millenia in Orlando, about 8 miles from the Waterford area, with her business decals removed. Her cell phone last pinged in Oak Ridge near Belle Isle. On December 8th, her phone was found underwater at Lake Conway, not far from Dale Smith's home. Initially, Michelle's family thought Dale might be innocent as he appeared upset, but he refused a polygraph test and only partially cooperated with police. SWAT searched his parents' home but found no evidence of Michelle. Due to Smith's violent history, the Florida Department of Children and Families briefly removed the twins from his care. Later, Dale moved the children to Tennessee, cutting off contact with Michelle's family. Even a 2018 law giving grandparents visitation rights did not help the Parkers, as the judge denied their petition. Michelle's family believes Dale Smith is responsible for her disappearance and possibly her death. While some initially thought she might have been carjacked, messages between Michelle and Dale convinced the family he was involved. Investigators have no new leads, and Michelle Parker's fate remains unknown. Her family continues to fight for justice for her and her children. Kyron Horman, 2010. Kyron Horman was born on September 9, 2002 in Portland, Oregon. His father's name is Kane Horman, and his mother's name is Desiree Young. Kyron's parents were married but divorced when Desiree was 8 months pregnant. At first, they shared custody of Kyron. However, in 2004, Desiree developed a medical problem and could not take care of Kyron, so Kane took full custody. In 2007, Kane married a woman named Terry Moulton. They had been together since 2001, and in December 2008, they had a daughter. On June 4, 2010, Terry took Kyron to school around 8:15 a.m. He was taking part in a science fair, and Terry stayed with him for a while. She took a photo of him that day, and that became the last photo ever taken of Kyron. Terry left the school around 8:45 a.m. and last saw Kyron walking to his first class. No one in his first class saw him, and he was marked absent that day. Terry said that after leaving school, she went to 2 grocery stores until about 10:10 a.m. Then she drove her 1.5-year-old daughter around to help with an earache until 11:39 a.m. After that, she went to a gym and worked out until about 12:40 p.m. She returned home at 1:21 p.m. and posted the photo of Kyron at the science fair online. Later, Kane and Terry went to pick Kyron up from the bus around 3:30 p.m., but the bus driver said Kyron was not on the bus. They called the school, and the secretary confirmed he had been marked absent. The secretary called 911, and the search for Kyron began immediately. Despite extensive efforts, Kyron was never found. During the investigation, Kane was told that Terry allegedly offered their landscaper money to kill him in January 2010. The police had the landscaper wear a wire, but Terry did not say anything incriminating. Kane filed for divorce on June 28, 2010, and got a restraining order in July. Terry's friend, Dee Spicer, was also mentioned in the investigation. On June 4th, Dee left a residence around 11:30 a.m. and did not return until 1 p.m. Dee later helped Terry get an untraceable phone but denied being involved in the case. In 2012, Desiree filed a lawsuit against Terry, claiming she kidnapped Kyron. Dee was questioned but refused to answer many questions. The lawsuit was dropped in 2013. Terry has never been named a suspect by the police, and no charges have been filed. She appeared on the Dr. Phil show in 2016, denying any wrongdoing. During the interview, Dr. Phil discussed her behavior after Kyron's disappearance, including Facebook posts and text messages. Terry failed 2 polygraph tests, which she blamed on hearing problems, but polygraphs are not reliable. She said her marriage to Kane was unhappy and denied any murder-for-hire plot. She suggested Kyron might have been kidnapped by a man in a white truck. On the day Kyron disappeared, some witnesses saw Terry with him leaving school. Others saw someone sitting in Terry's truck. Terry washed Kyron's jacket and backpack, but the items she said she bought at stores were never found. She had a leg injury that she said happened at the gym. Terry has been described as charming, but also strict and controlling. She has a past DUI arrest, but no serious criminal record. Kyron being taken to school makes it seem unlikely she kidnapped him. Her limited criminal history does not suggest she would commit murder. There is a lot of anger and tension among the adults in Kyron's life, which makes it hard to know the truth. While some details about Terry seem suspicious, there is no proof she took Kyron, and sadly, whoever is responsible may never be caught.